Okay, we're live.
My chances of me getting it so low.
Figures it's not gonna happen. Yeah. Is this yours? Oh, this one. You can share it. Oh,
Oh, thank you.
I'd like to see the contract, but I don't think they're
All right, thank Hey, folks, good evening. It's our intent to start in a couple of minutes, but we may be delayed depending on the arrival of a key individual this evening, which is the Honorable Allison Royer, to swear in Cody Bright. So we want to get the ball started in the right way. So if we have a little delay, that's okay. We get the year started in the proper fashion and respect to Cody, and the Honorable Judge probably has had a full schedule today as well. So
discuss among yourselves.
yeah, so just short of one.
This was.
I was like, what kind of is that? Yes. I knew the name, that's why I was like.
Oh, she was. Yeah. She feels better.
This is, I guess I took this out for the first time. I got this a couple years ago.
She had.
All you have to do is ask Eric if you want to get some kind of a house photo. Yeah, as I say, I got some orange. It's nice, it's warm. You know, it's what I can tell. I think that those identifiers are nice to have. When you're on a fan here, it's nice to wear. We did that at East Brad. I know most of the councils do that.
She didn't do anything wrong.
Maybe a little big. That too.
Something. I think it was about the kids. Before that.
Judge, or good.
I was like, awesome. Cool. And welcome to my phone.
We will do the pledge first. Folks, good evening. We are ready to call this meeting to order tonight. This is our East Goshen Township Annual Organization Meeting. Healthy and safe New Year to everybody who is here tonight. We're going to do a couple of the standard starts to our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance and then a moment of silence. I'll ask Michelle if you will do the moment of silence. And then we will welcome, as we will at this moment, the good Judge Royer to swear in our newest supervisor. So let's stand and pledge allegiance to our flag. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if you remain standing, Michelle, you might have a moment of silence, please.
And please keep in mind all of our healthcare workers who are dealing with a lot of COVID patients right now, as well as our first responders, WeGo, and firefighters. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Michelle. Announce that this meeting is being live streamed through YouTube, and we hope we have a few people listening today, other than the few that only listen usually. So a few more would be great. At this point in time with our agenda, we're going to have the swearing in of our newly elected supervisor, Cody Bright, the young and bright Cody Bright, and with the Honorable Allison Bell Royer doing the honor. Thank you, Judge.
All right, ready?
Yeah.
Repeat after me. Your left hand on the Bible, raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Cody Bright,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and that I will discharge the duties of Township Supervisor
and that I will discharge the duties of Township Supervisor
in East Goshen Township,
In East
Chester County,
in East Goshen Township, Chester County,
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Congratulations, you are sworn. Okay, are you ready? Same thing. Repeat after me, please. I state your name.
I, Melissa Bright,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and that I will discharge the duties
and I will discharge the duties
of Township Tax Collector
of Township Tax Collector
in East Goshen Township,
in East Goshen Township,
Chester County,
Chester County,
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Congratulations, you are also now.
Melissa, I'm sorry, I missed my cue there to introduce you as the newest tax collector, so congratulations.
Before you get away, let's make it really official. Myself, you sign, and then.
Oh, Karen, you're our constable, very good. Then the next swearing in, so I get my cue this time, is Karen Miller, who will be sworn in as our constable.
So, the Bible holder, or would you like?
Township Supervisor and Bible.
So you're talking about. Left hand on the Bible, raise your right hand, good job, repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Karen Miller,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support,
that I will support,
obey, and defend
obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United
and
States
the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and that I will discharge the duties
and that I will discharge the duties
of constable
of constable
in East Goshen Township,
in
Chester
Chester
County,
County, Chester County,
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Congratulations, Karen. So, anytime, there's my comment.
Now, while Melissa and Karen may recognize that they might not be having as many meetings and as long agendas as Cody will as our new supervisor, I think it's always good to recognize when citizens step forward into the democratic process to run for an office, to go through the process, and to commit to the term and the following the oath of office that was just taken. So congratulations again, Karen and Melissa. At this time, as we begin the reorganization process, the first thing that will occur to this evening, first let me state, as we move in with a new board this year in 2022, one final thank you to outgoing Supervisor Marty Shane, 36 years. He's had a tough couple of last years with COVID and other health challenges. His service in the position of elected position of on the Board of Supervisors for 6 terms, 36 years, is pretty substantial. I don't know how he did it, but he did. So we do thank him and we wish him well in his years ahead. And our other supervisor, David Truitt, is away at the moment. He is live. David, are you there on the line?
Aloha.
Yes, he is, and that gives you an idea where David Truitt is at the moment. He's 6,000 miles west of us, out there in the Pacific. So David will be joining us, obviously, as you hear telecommunication-wise. The first item of business then this evening, in my capacity as vice chair, is to seek an election for our chair of the board for 2022. And in that capacity, I would open the floor and take nominations, take nominations from the board for chair of the Board of Supervisors for 2022. Are there any nominations?
Mr. Vice Chair, I would like to nominate Michelle Truitt for chair.
Very good. Is there a second to that?
By myself, wasn't I second that?
Okay. Are there any other nominations for chair at this point? Hearing none, I will call for a vote for chair of Michelle Truitt for chairman of the Board of Supervisors for 2022. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Present.
All, and opposed? None. Mr. Shuey has expressed a vote of present. So the vote will be 4-0 with one present. Michelle, congratulations, and there's the gavel.
Thank you.
It's all you now.
Thank you, Mike. And the next order of business then is to accept nominations for vice chair of the board for 2022. Do I have any nominations? I would like to nominate John Herzog as vice chair. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Cody, for seconding that. So there is a nomination for John Herzog. Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question. Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And those opposed?
Present.
Present. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Thank you. Congratulations, John.
John?
And next order of business is to seek nominations for police commissioner.
It's official, I'm moving this over.
To seek the position of police commissioner. I will accept nominations for that position.
I nominate Michelle Truitt.
Ooh, are there seconds? Thank you. Are there any other nominations, David or Mike?
No.
David, is there? No? Okay. So as there are no other nominations, I'm going to call the question. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those, thank you. Those none opposed. Thank you very much, David.
Best of luck.
Thank you. I'm going to need it. The next position is to appoint a representative to the pension committee, and I will open the floor to nominations. I would like to actually nominate David Shuey for that position.
I would second the nomination.
Thank you, John. Are there any other nominations for the pension committee representative? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question, please. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Congratulations, David. The next appointment, thank you. The next appointment is the representative to the Westchester Area Council of Governments, or the Westchester COG. And I open the floor to nominations for that position.
I'd like to nominate Cody Wright.
Thank you, John. I would second that. Are there any other nominations, David or Mike?
No.
Okay. Okay, no other nominations then. Seeing that there are no other nominations, we'll call the question. Those in favor, aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed? David, are you present or are you?
Aye, I'm sorry, said aye, yes.
Thank you so much. Okay, next order of business
Thank
is,
you, Cody.
yes, thank you very much for that.
Congratulations.
Next order of business is to appoint the township officials. And I would like to open the floor to now for a motion to appoint township officials.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion in consensus form to motion to approve and appoint one of this item F on the agenda, item 1 through item 7, and item 9 through item 13 as this consensus motion for those respective appointments.
Would that also include G?
And G as well on the agenda, which is to reappoint township employees. So the excluding one for discussion that I would request would be number 8 as the township solicitor.
Okay, and
I'll
is there,
second that motion.
you'll second it, thank you, David. And so, going to call the question. Those in favor of appointing the township officials labeled F 1 through 7 and 10 through 13, including,
9 through
excuse
13.
me, 9 through 13, including G. In favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Opposed? None. Thank you for that. Shall we address F8 now, or do you want to come back to that?
I think it would be fine to address from my perspective, but that's
Okay.
I requested the
Then I'll
consideration.
accept a motion to appoint Township Solicitor as Lamb Lane. Do I have a motion?
I make that motion.
Thank you.
For discussion, yes, I'd like to, sometimes when there is a matter that I think is important, I will often prepare it in a written form and share it with my colleagues. So I'm going to read this. So how did this change in solicitorship make it to the organization agenda without an effective vetting process by this Board of Supervisors? Rhetorical. The present matter and its placement on this agenda strikes me as a reactive and impulsive. It strikes me as a reactive and impulsive and mute to the regular Board of Supervisors interactive vetting process. This political thing, if so, I don't get it. Is it some sort of power play by the so-called majority of the board? Please pray tell. For the years I've been on the Board of Supervisors, commencing the 6th year now, we have worked collaboratively, cooperatively, and collegially to share our comments, opinions, and positions before making a decision. And of course, we have agreed to be respectful of our divergent opinions and positions, understanding the vote by the governing body might not be unanimous. It's the hallmark of our democratic and transparent civil process. In the subject matter, a new law firm to serve East Goshen Township has been published on the public agenda by whom? Certainly not unilaterally by the township manager. It's been done sans discussion with the full board in session, whether it be a public meeting or an executive session as a personnel matter. During my 5 years of service to date, the township and the Board of Supervisors have not engaged or hired or appointed any person or professional firm or service without an organized, deliberative, collaborative due diligence process, whether hiring the township manager, director of finance, varied ABC appointments, advisory boards and commissions appointments, consultants, or services. I believe such a process is a fiduciary responsibility and the duty of an elected official of a governing body to all our residents and taxpayer citizens. In the subject matter, we have not systematically nor collectively as a board evaluated the services of either the current township solicitor or the indicated law firm on the agenda this evening. Nor have we openly obtained proposals from other qualified firms and in due course interviewed them as a full Board of Supervisors, as we have done with any other key appointments. Why? Further, this considered appointment tonight is contrary to recent board consensus on similar areas of due diligence, including an examination of our present system of evaluating and rating employee performance, the initiative to undertake a police services study, or renewed attention to the performance evaluation process of the WeGo police chief, each of which is part of our due diligence undertaken by the full board as a collaborative engagement. Do you think either of the law firms in our purview this evening would advise the board to undertake the hiring or engagement of a new employee or a professional consultant without a systematic process of selection? And in terms of etiquette, would any of us like to be treated in this manner? To do so is unprofessional, discourteous, and pedestrian in the public arena we serve as elected officials. It is a disservice to both firms in this case. The outgoing solicitor firm sucker punched and the incoming firm beguiled by the surprise appointment, but internally wondering how long their engagement will continue before they are unceremoniously exited without an advanced and informed reason or even thanks. Is this the type of organizational behavior environment that we now will operate? In its present form and method of presentation, I find this hasty appointment ill-conceived and soiled. I cannot support this type of conduct as a member of the Board of Supervisors without following the systematic process with the entire board. It's unbecoming and undermines our service and responsibility to our residents and those who we engage and rely upon to educate and advise us as the governing body of this excellent township and local government. And it erodes our relationship as a board and as individual supervisors. Thank you.
I would like to also put on my comments. In my 4 years of service, this is the first what appears to be blatant political action by our board, and I can't support that without doing due diligence on. I don't know this firm. I have questions, and by voting on it today, I won't get those questions answered.
Is that all, David? Do you have anything else?
Yes.
Anybody else? John, Cody? Then I'm going to take a page out of Mike's book. He has taught me well to write down my thoughts. I do have some thoughts regarding this as well. For the record, we do have Liam Mackerlane employed as a pipeline lawyer expert for us. And so we do have that firm in our township currently. And the outgoing lawyer has been requested to stay on for certain other tasks. Ascribing motives to someone else is not only uncivilized conduct that exacerbates the divisive nature of today's political atmosphere, but it's also not permitted in some legislative bodies because it's impossible to know what's in someone else's mind and heart. Since the accusation has been made, the public should be aware that Liam Mackerlane has not contributed to the political campaigns of at least 3 members of this board. If Scott Bryan were still the chairman of the Republican Committee of Chester County and business were being transferred to Buckley Bryan, perhaps some suspicion would be reasonable, but there's nothing to even suggest that this is politically motivated. So motives are irrelevant. The facts are here. Our current lawyer cannot attend our meetings because she also represents West Goshen Township. When she is present for hearings, she often has the hearing done at the very beginning of the meeting. It is open and closed within 5 to 7 minutes in time for her to urgently leave for West Goshen Township. The prices are the same for both Liam Mackerlane and Buckley Bryan. Liam does have a lawyer who can make it to our meetings. And as I said before, we're using Liam Mackerlane for pipeline issues already. We've been pleased with the results. We've recently asked Bill Chrisman to represent us. He has in the past represented residents in various issues and zoning concerns. And if you have watched him in action, you will see that his arguments are sound and excellent. And his performance has been exemplary. Plus, Bill Chrisman has also been a past supervisor. So he has the experience of knowing what it's like to be on this side of the dais. So I am in favor of transferring our services to from Buckley Bryan to Liam Mackerlane. And I would ask for any other discussion to be had now.
Yeah, I'd like to make a quick comment.
Yeah,
In the 4 years I've been involved with the board, I have never seen anybody from Buckley Bryan have a conflict with our meetings. They had the right resources, attending our meetings, conducting all of our sessions, and I had a speeches argument, I believe. And I also would comment on the quality of the work done by that firm on our behalf over the extended period of time that they've been our lawyers. So I just want to note that.
I'd like to offer also a bit of comment. My particular issue, colleagues, is not with the firm per se. It's with the process. As I said in my prepared notes, we usually and traditionally and consistently have had a collaborative process in advance of any appointment, whether it's for a new employee, whether it's an appointment to the ABCs, a planning commission member, a conservancy board, what have you. And that process was obfuscated. It didn't occur. And there was an indication of, well, we exchanged some emails and had a telephone call during a holiday period. I had knee surgery. I was, in and out, et cetera, et cetera. We didn't meet as a board to discuss it and vet it the way we usually do. And so that's why I said it was hasty and impulsive and not consistent with anything we've done in the past. I know the attorneys at Liam Mackerlane. They're solid. In fact, one of my bosses, when I was the manager in East Bradford Township for 30 years, is one of the partners who oversees Bill Chrisman, Vince Pompo. Very fine attorney. His and my personality did not necessarily mesh very well, but he has my ultimate respect as a fine municipal attorney, and the firm has good, very fine attorneys. I don't have a problem with the firm. My issue is with the process. And if this is the way we're going to be conducting business as a board going forward, it'll be a real disappointment because that's not the way we've done things in the past. So I wanted to clarify that. I think the fact that Kristen Camp, who has been our front solicitor we have public hearings at the beginning of of our regular meetings, conduct that and exits. We have not necessarily requested, as some municipalities do, to have their solicitors sit in at all the meetings. At a billable rate, those things can add up if there's not something germane for them to comment on during the course of the rest of the agenda. So I think that's a bit of a red herring just with the schedule. The performance, as far as I know, has been fine. One of her, Kristen Camp's associates, Kim Benzie, recently did a public hearing on our small facilities, wireless facilities ordinance with a very fine briefing, and conducted the hearing very effectively. So we did not evaluate nor give them any advance notice. And I think that's a poor showing on our part and is poor etiquette. Again, I don't have a problem with the firm whatsoever of Lamb McElwain. It's just a process that we undertook here or that occurred anormal from what we have historically and traditionally done, especially of our recent board these last few years.
Cody, you have something to say?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. In 2021, I worked for the Chester County Bar Association for 11 months. They had about 1,100 members. I interacted with quite a few attorneys, including municipal focused attorneys. Mr. Crispin is very well qualified, not only from a legal standpoint, but as the chair noted in his efforts as a former supervisor, he's also a solicitor in townships nearby. So I think he's going to make an excellent solicitor, and that's what I have.
Thank you, Cody. And again, I'll just say that it was not a political, this is not a political appointment by any means, and I did try to get a hold of both of the other members to discuss it, and as Mike said, he had issues, everybody has issues, it's not a great time of the year, but it was the only time of the year that we had to discuss it, and I made several attempts to do so. So
I'm going to play off of that, Michelle, for a moment, because I don't accept that. Because had we had another appointment or hiring someone like the municipal manager or director of finance, and we had a seasonal situation occur, irrespective of the organization meeting, it doesn't matter. It's not a drop dead date for the appointment of one of our consultants or officials. So it hasn't been explained to me why we just ignore the process that we normally do and write it off to either a scheduling conflict or that we try to talk via email or text or whatever. It doesn't hold anything, Michelle, and I'm disappointed in the way that it's occurred. So you should know that going forward, and I hope it doesn't occur on a consistent basis as we go forward these next months. I'm saying that to you, Cody, I'm saying that to you, John, I'm saying that to you, Michelle, and I'm saying that to you, David.
The letter from Lamb came to Cody, and it sounded like there was an invitation from Cody to become the township solicitor prior to his being sworn in. I find that unusual and political.
Cody was giving personal testimony as to his professional experience with Mr. Crispin. That's all. John, what did you want to say?
I was just going to say that it's my understanding that we are required to make these appointments tonight.
No,
Yeah,
no.
we
Yeah.
either appoint a new solicitor or the old solicitor.
Okay, if that's the
And
case,
that's the
John,
case.
that's fine if that's the case, but rushing into a solicitorship before you even engage the full board, it smacks of just a power play. And if that's the way you want to go about it, fine. I can play that as well. We may be in a minority vote on a variety of things. We have been in the past. We've had agreements that we've had divergent opinions on matters. But in this case, there was something that just smacked of something very unusual. And Cody, it reflects on you poorly to start out your term on this. And I'm sorry that that's the way it started, but that's the way I see it.
That's okay. I know when you and I discussed previously before I took this position, I told you and both David that we would have some disagreements when we started the process in the board in my tenureship, and I asked that it wouldn't affect our relationship, and I hope that's the answer.
It's all about process and collaborative relationships, though, Cody. That's what I'm looking for. That's not necessarily the firm. I said that that's not the issue. It's the way this was conducted.
Okay, there's a motion on the table, and I will ask if there's any further discussion that we have it down. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question. Those in favor of appointing Township Solicitor Lamb McErlane, aye? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye, here,
No,
no.
Thank you. Okay, moving on, we have to appoint the depositories for township funds. I will accept a motion on that category H.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, this is, and I'll need a second.
I'll second that.
Thank you. This is to appoint depositories for township funds and authorize the Director of Finance Treasurer to make investments at banks, paying the best rate of interest and with the best terms. This is Resolution 2022-1. We are going to appoint Citadel Bank, WSFS Bank, Pliget, which is the PA Local Government Investment Trust. The custodian for that is Wells Fargo. Also TD Bank and M&T Bank. Is there any discussion on the matter?
No, these are established firms that we've used, and they've all provided good service. Dave, on your introduction into the township over this past year, you've had good response and service from them.
Yes, we've had good service with those. We currently have an RFP out, we haven't put it out yet. It's under review to see if there are better services out there, so we're doing our due diligence in that regard.
Excellent.
But these are fine firms.
Okay. Excellent.
Okay, and is there any public comment regarding this? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question. Those in favor?
Aye.
aye,
Those, okay, thank you, David. So that is 5-0. And moving on, I will accept a motion to certify the delegates to the Psat's convention.
Madam Chair, I move that the 5 supervisors, the manager, and the director of finance be affirmed as delegates to the Psat's convention. That the voting delegate be Garrett Davis, and the alternate voting delegate be Dave Ware.
Thank you, John. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mike. Do we have any discussion, board? And are there any public questions or comments? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question. Those in favor? Aye.
aye,
Thank you. Passing 5-0. Moving on to J, we're going to confirm the holiday schedule.
Everybody likes holidays.
I would make a motion, if I may, to confirm the 2022 holiday schedule and also to confirm the 2022 meeting schedule at the same time.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. Is there any discussion at the board level?
Of either of these? No.
I'm going to just make a couple of comments then that I'd like the board to please consider moving forward. And this could be a discussion that we can have this year for fiscal year 2023, or calendar year rather, or it could be discussion that we can have sooner rather than later and then amend it into the calendar. But I'd like to consider adding one floating holiday. That would make it 12 holidays that the staff would receive, which is still below what some of the townships offer and well below what the county, state, and federal holiday offerings are. And I propose this float day to be taken for any religious holiday the employee wants to observe from a list of specified religious holidays or for their birthday. And it's really intended to improve acceptance and recognition of diverse religions that we celebrate. So I'd like us to consider that. I know that it has the specified dates and holidays listed, that's 11 days. And I'm fine with accepting this, but I would like to seriously have the board consider that we need to become a little bit more accepting in the diverse nature of the various religions we have here.
I think that's a good initiative, I think. I certainly can support that. I'd like to change the name of a few other holidays, but I don't want to get into that. But I think that opens up that opens up an option for employees that provide some flexibility with their own particular lifestyle and their belief systems, et cetera. So I think that's a good idea. And of course, a caveat should be that if an employee doesn't use that floating holiday, it's not a compensated. It's not compensated on top of that.
That's a good idea. So is there any, I'm
That's
sorry,
not part of the motion.
that's not part of the motion, it's just,
We're-
it's just a comment, just part of the board discussion. Is there any public comment or question?
You did make this as a motion, Michelle?
No, I did not make that. as a
Okay,
motion.
so it's not.
Just
it's not-
simply
it's just
discussion.
discussion.
Just discussion. Is there any public comment or question? So we can confirm the holiday schedule as it is listed, as well as the meeting schedule that is listed. Regarding the meeting schedule, we are going to be talking to our ABC volunteers at the end of the month on January 25th, and we're going to talk about possibly consolidating some of these into some of the other boards. So we might have to revisit the meeting schedule at a later time and re-sunshine some of those meeting schedules. So that's just a comment to make sure that everyone is aware of that. But at this time, I can call the question if there are no questions, correct? No. So I'll call the question. Yeah, public comment, there was none. And I'll call the question. Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, 5-0.
Thank you.
And moving on to confirming the Keystone Collection Agency is the earned income and local services tax collector for the township, and appointing Malley LLP as independent auditors for the township.
Now, let me ask here, L is not really a motion item because as we're members of the Chester County Tax Collection Committee, which oversees the contract under the act, we are a part of that committee, so we're affirming it. We're not necessarily confirming it. Is that accurate? We're not really motioning this. It is a fact that that's who it is for our county and through the Chester County Tax Collection Committee, which is composed of representatives from our respective municipalities.
We're part of the taxing district for the entire county, that's
Yeah.
not gonna change.
Right.
Whether you wanna make a motion or just affirm it.
Affirm it.
I don't think it's a big deal either.
My sense would be to acknowledge it and affirm it rather than a motion in this particular case, because it's not as if we're affecting it, we're accepting it.
Okay, so we can confirm that then. And then I would accept a motion to,
Michelle,
yes,
Michelle?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm having a little trouble hearing. Did you put J and K together confirming the meetings?
Yes.
Yes.
John did,
Yes.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry that you didn't hear that. And now we're going to confirm the Keystone Collection Agency is the earned income and local services tax
Yeah.
collector for the township. That's done.
Yeah.
I would accept a motion for M.
I'll make that motion to appoint Malley LLP as our independent auditors for the township.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Cody. Is there any discussion on the board? Is there any public comment or question regarding Malley being our auditor? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question. Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Mike?
Oh, excuse me, aye.
Thank you.
Come in,
Okay.
I'm with you.
All right, we need to have two different motions here for N and O. I would accept a motion for N to designate the emergency services providers in
Yes,
resolution 2022-02.
I'll make that motion.
Second the motion.
Do we want to read that resolution or is it not?
Yeah.
This is essentially, what this resolution is essentially affirming those emergency service providers, our fire companies, our ambulance, primarily, those are the two, correct?
Yes.
EMS, for our service area. And it's this plays into the relationship we have with our 911 system so that the operators of the 911 system know exactly who to contact in the event of a 911 call. So this puts this in motion for the new year, and there's no changes to it. It's the same providers. Let me see if I have the motion in front of me.
We have a resolution.
Excuse me, a resolution. Let me see if I have this. Yeah.
It's long.
It is a long one. But this provides the service boundaries for Good Fellowship Ambulance Club, for our Goshen Fire Company, and includes as well recognizing Malvern Fire Company for a partial service area within our township jurisdiction. So this would be the motion to adopt Resolution 2022 number 2. Again, a resolution designating the emergency services providers for East Goshen Township. The motion.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Is there any discussion about this on the board? Are there any questions? Are there any public questions or comments regarding our emergency service providers? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question. Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes 5-0. Excuse me, sometimes when I talk too much, I feel a little tickle in my throat. O is to establish the 2022 fee schedule under Resolution 2022-3. Do I have a motion to accept the fee schedule?
I'll make that.
I'll make that motion to accept the fee schedule for 2022 as provided by the Township Manager and Director of Finance.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
I'll second.
Thank you, David. We'll accept your second.
David.
Okay, so, looking at the fee schedule, Dave Ware, could you possibly take us through this a little bit so that everybody understands what this is about?
Any of the key changes, Dave, I think are worth noting.
Yep.
Sure, so, looking at this fee schedule, it was not changed last year. And a number of the fees, after going through, I got input from all of the directors associated with the various departments, and also staff, to see what we had changed, what we had not changed, say in the past 10 years, 15 years.
Okay. It only says
David, John just had a quick question for Dave there. They're
I was
okay
asking about Panoni, the increase in the
in the
fee rate,
Panoni fees, yeah.
I think
but Panoni would be,
Panoni put it to the subject line fee schedule. but it was-
Oh, okay,
it's
that's,
actually for Appoint Panoni,
Okay.
as the engineer.
so we're still on
So
we're
that's
still on the fee
separate,
schedule.
that would be
Okay.
separate from the fee schedule.
Mhm.
The fee schedule is primarily zoning, ballpark rentals, all the park fees, different inspections that people need, zoning alarm violations, our new small wireless facilities. So basically all the ones that I'm recommending changing haven't either not been changed in a very long time and hasn't caught up with inflation, which is everyone's salaries, all the cost of fuel, the cost of our fleets. So to help recoup some of those dollars, I'm recommending the park fee be increased based on Jason Lang from $30 to $36 per field report. The sewer inspection fees be from $150 per lateral to $300 per lateral. Plumbers are now taking 2 to 3 days, and that requires our teams to go out multiple times. It used to be just a single inspection. Sewer and refuse certs going from $5 per cert to $15 per service. Chris Boylan did a nice analysis on that, which supported my recommendation. Residential zoning permit alarms, recommended from $40 to $50. That came from our zoning officer. The refuse fee going from $75 a quarter to $100 a quarter. This is based on offsetting our new hauler contract as well as other fees that have increased for refuse in the last 10 years. Township permit fee multiplier, which is a factor. It's applied to various permits by zoning. So going from 0.01 to 0.011 hasn't changed since 2011. So I'm increasing that factor by 10%. A new fee that we have added is zoning verification fee. We used to not charge for that, but now we've had increased requests by residents, mostly from contractors and larger businesses. So we've recommended $100 per request for that. And then the small wireless facilities, which there was none until, as Mike alluded, and Benzie wrote a policy for us, which was ratified, and where all of the fees for those different facilities are itemized in this. Those are all the ones that changed from our fee schedule. And we've taken time to make sure that none of them are egregious and all of them make sense as far as keeping up with increased costs.
Thank you, Dave. I have a question about the small wireless facilities. Did you base that on something in particular? Or did you look at other townships, what they've been doing?
That's the FCC requirement.
Is that the requirement?
Okay. Those are right out of the FCC.
Perfect.
And folks, just so you know, this fee
Schedule is something that every municipality uses. It essentially, its purpose is to capture the cost of operations, but it's not a profit center. And so with the reviews that folks like Dave and Chris do with Derek's oversight, they verify that our costs have increased to do various things, whether it's building permits or any of these other permits or fees associated. So that it is something that if there's a service provided, we can look to the fee schedule and it's not arbitrary.
Yeah, it's a net zero at best. It's most often than not just an offset to what the costs are.
Is there any further board discussion or any questions? And as for public comment or questions on this matter, anybody have any questions? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question. Those in favor of passing this resolution 2022-3 to establish the fee schedule? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all. 5-0. I will accept a motion to authorize participation in the Municipal Risk Management Workers' Compensation Pool Trust and to announce the continuance of all other applicable resolutions that were adopted previously. Thank you, Cody. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Does anyone on the board have any questions regarding this matter, these matters? Anyone? And do I have any public questions or comments? Then seeing none, I will call the question. Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. 5-0.
Now, I can't honestly say that the continuance of all other applicable resolutions, that I know exactly what they all are, but I know we did them all in proper form.
Yes, we did last time.
So that's okay. So we're all right there.
Okay. The chairman's report. Chairman's report is brief. The annual ABC planning session will be held on Tuesday, January 25th at 6:30 p.m. We hold this session every year, and this is so that we can see what our ABCs are doing, what they've done, see what their current situation is with their boards, to see if they need more volunteers, to see what their goals are for this coming year. And this year, we're going to be discussing with them the possible consolidation of some of those boards. We have, in East Goshen Township, we have 17 ABCs and including task force as well. And it leads to staff and supervisors being spread very thin as we all of us act as liaison to these boards and commissions. There are recording secretary fees. There are staff members who stay very late for sometimes. There was one staff member in particular who had 4 different committees. He had to stay 4 in the evenings. And so it's quite a lot of time. So we are gonna be discussing some of that with the ABCs to see how we can possibly streamline some of them.
Well, the other point I'd like to make, if I may, is that, we have, how many, 16 or 17?
16 or 17.
West Town told me that they have 7. Thornberry has 5 or 6, and Derek, you said, West Goshen had 7 or 8? 7. We have 16 or 17.
And talking to Psat, they said most townships don't have more than 10, which was surprising.
So that may indicate where we're headed.
Great. And so that's the chairman's report. There are no police or EMS reports this evening. There is no financial report this evening. We're moving on to the approval of the minutes and the treasurer's report. So I would be open to a motion regarding the minutes from December the 7th and 21st.
Mike,
Yeah, I'd make a motion. I'd make a motion that the board accept the Board of Supervisors meeting minutes from December 7th, 2021, and the December 21st, 2021 minutes as recorded and written.
second the motion.
Thank you, John. Anyone have any questions or concerns or corrections regarding these minutes? I didn't see anything. They were very nicely done. Thank you. Are there any public comments or questions regarding the minutes? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you, 5-0. And we'll move on to the treasurer's report.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. The general fund revenue is driven by earned income tax payments, monthly district course lease payment, parks and rec classes, all field rentals, sorted permit fees, holiday ornament sales, even for over $500, and by the historical commission. And expenses for the general fund include geoplan license renewal, insurance payments, loan payments, stormwater and paving expenses, and passing back non-police fire alarms fees to the Goshen Fire Company. Bond fund was primarily driven by engineering costs for Hershey's Mill Dam and Milltown Dam projects. The ARPA fund incurred $630, which rounds out and finalizes our hybrid meeting room improvements. That's all I have for that.
We're all looking forward to that new room, that's for sure.
Q1. Should be done Q1.
Joe, is there a motion?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I move that we graciously accept the receipts and approve the expenditures as presented on the expenditures register and summarized in the treasurer's report by Dave Ware.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thanks, Cody. Are there any questions regarding, yes, sir?
I have a question, a little bit off the point. When are we going to see a year-end financial report?
That should be on 18th. Is that meeting?
Okay,
The
thank you.
next board meeting.
That's good, that's
Thank
great.
Are there any questions regarding the bills?
None here.
Okay, David, do you have any questions regarding the bills?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Michelle, just to clarify, it's the December 29th financial report, and then agenda, I think it says December 30th.
Oh, good,
But we
okay.
will have some other expenses from December 29th.
Sure.
Through the 31st. Okay, thank you for saying that, Chris. So, David, did you catch that?
No,
Okay, Chris said that there are going to, it's the treasurer's report and expenditures through December the 29th, and there will be additional expenditures and receipts and expenditures after that for the 30th and 31st.
mahalo.
Okay, so are there any public comments or questions regarding the bills for this month through December the 29th? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question. Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, 5-0. There are no public hearings this evening. There's no old business. And getting on to new business. New business, considering the ABC appointments.
We have about a dozen reappointments or appointments listed. Can we read down those, Michelle? And for the record,
I think we
so
do.
these will be entered into the minutes.
I would accept a motion to, yes, go ahead.
Okay, I would make a motion that we reappoint or appoint the following, and I'm going to read down these. If I go too quickly, forgive me, but there are a number here, but just for the record. Walter Wojcik, the Conservancy Board, Scott Sanders to the Conservancy Board, Alice Lengthy to the SAC, which is our Sustainability Advisory Committee, Donna Pizarro to the Municipal Authority, Kevin Cummings, the Municipal Authority, Eric Tobin, Parks and Recreation, Jessica Bataro, Parks and Recreation, Gerald Sexton to the Pipeline Task Force, Edward Deckard, Planning Commission, Mike Paganelli, to the Planning Commission, Walter Wojcik again, this time to the Stormwater Appeals Board, Thomas Clapper as our Vacancy Committee, Sigmund Fleck to the Zoning Hearing Board, and Chuck Proctor to the Zoning Hearing Board. We also would acknowledge Mary Irvine's resignation from the Historical Commission.
Thank you, I was going to acknowledge that. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Cody seconded that. Are there any board comments or questions?
Nope, thanks for your service, everybody
I
involved.
appreciate everybody's service, but I believe that we should get new blood on some of these commissions. And so I'm opposed to the blanket approval of all of these people.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion or question?
I would only comment from John's comment, it would be, these folks, of course, have agreed to serve. There's no salary involved here. There are no wages involved with these folks. It's all volunteer service. And many times municipalities, whether Tyranny, Goshen, or other municipalities, kind of has to, really scratch and remind and request over and over to have citizens volunteer. And it's tough to get volunteers to commit for extended terms. Ward, for instance, these are 6-year terms. But some of these other terms are 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. So it's tough to get people sometimes. So keeping the, of course, it comes back to our conversation about the ABCs and whether we need to consolidate, which we're
Okay, we're gonna have that discussion. But in the,
in the practicality of it, if there were a waiting line for some of these, it would be great to have those kind of, demands to select more. But we've had great people filling in and putting themselves out here for the service. So I hope we do get some waiting lines for some of these. But at this time being, we've been pleased to have their service.
Are there any other board comments or questions? Are there any comments or questions from the public? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question. Those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Those opposed?
Opposed?
Nay. Okay, thank you. That's 3-2. I agree with John.
Michelle.
John and Michelle are negative. I don't believe that we should do blanket appointments in that regard. And we'll go on to B, considering board liaisons. So this is going to be changing once we address the ABC consolidation. So Derek, can you tell us where we think we fall?
As long as all the members agree to these liaison appointments, Madam Chair, this is right now what we have. I'm going to talk loud so David can hear me. We have John Herzog, Planning Commission, Historical Commission, and Conservancy Board. Michelle Truitt, Police Commissioner, as well as Chair of this board. Mike Lynch, Municipal Authority. Cody Bright, Parks and Recreation and Futurists. And then David Shuey, Pipeline Task Force, Pension Committee, and Sustainability Advisory Committee. And that is what I have for current ABC liaisons.
David, did you hear that?
I did, thank you.
David, are you okay with the SAC and the Pipeline Task Force and Pension Committee?
Yeah, I'm good with the list as presented.
Thank you. Mike, did you hear all that too, Mike?
Oh, yes, yes.
Okay, are there any questions on the board, from the board members? Any comments? Is there a public comment or question regarding these liaison appointments? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question. Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, 5-0. And I am going to move on to, as it's my prerogative, I'm going to shuffle things, and we're going to shuffle down to item D, like in David, to consider the approval of Jen Benoit, Thornbury Supervisor, as the third WeGo Commission member. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Cody. Is there a second? I will second that. Is there more discussion regarding the approval of Benoit, Mr. Benoit as the third commissioner? Before we go.
I will simply state that my position from years of service is that when a municipality is purchasing services from a police organization, in our case, WeGo, which is the partners and the invested entities are incorporated, so to speak, of Westtown and East Goshen Township, that they, another party, in this case Thornbury Township, that's purchasing services, should not have a place on the commission. So it's not necessarily my position as contrary to Mr. Benoit, but that's my overall position.
Thank you. And David, do you have any comments or questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions from the board? Are there any public comments or questions regarding the appointment of Mr. Benoit? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
I'm opposed.
Thank you, John.
Nay.
Thank you.
No.
Thank you. And that motion fails 2-3. And we will go back up to item C. Consider authorization for Buckley Bryan and the township staff to start the process of unwinding declarations. I will accept a motion on this matter. John?
Madam Chair, I make a motion, we authorize Buckley Bryan legal counsel on the matter, township staff to start and investigate the process of unwinding the legal case originating from the declarations of taking. I don't know. Put forth in resolutions 2021-200, 2021-201, and to explore the revesting of title either through the filing of a declaration of relinquishment or agreement with the condemnees.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you.
So,
That was very wordy. Thank you.
I got through it.
You did. Thank you. Okay, is there any board discussion on this matter?
Yes, I'd like to offer some, go ahead, David.
Amendment to the motion.
Amendment.
Make amendment to the motion. As John read the motion, I believe it's legal counsel on this matter and township staff to start and investigate the process of unwinding. I would like to see us eliminate to start and then have it be township staff to investigate the process of unwinding. The word start there implies that we're starting the unwinding as opposed to discussing the process ahead of time, so I can't accept that.
Well, I can accept that friendly amendment. We'll start investigating while they're going to start unwinding.
Okay, so you will accept that friendly amendment then as a second. Is that what you said, John?
Yes, I did.
Okay,
Good, David?
David, did you hear that?
Yeah, so we're changing it to start investigating the process.
Yes, sir.
Township staff to investigate the process, to start the start, and so you're really removing the word and.
Yes.
The way it's written, we're telling them to start the unwinding and investigate it, and you can't start it until you investigate it.
There you
Well,
go.
it has to be started in order to investigate, doesn't it?
What is the definition of this?
Right.
So,
What we would agree
I mean,
to.
what are you
to
agreeing
look into
to-
The process of what it entails. We're investigating what it's going to entail, right? But we're not starting by saying file documents, et cetera, et cetera. We're investigating what that's all about, correct, Derek?
the way it's worded here, that, you know, any sort of, whatever the process would be as far as legally have to be filed, the board would have to come back to the board prior to any sort of filing of any kind.
Okay, so that's part of the investigation of seeing what these documents look like and what the process is.
But my understanding, the way it's worded, and the way talking to Buckley Bryan, it would give Buckley Bryan the authorization to talk to the other side's counsel as well, based on the language John said, on possibly an agreement with the condominium. There's two avenues to go about it. There's just filing through a court procedure, which then we are basically at the mercy of the judge for terms of unwinding, or you can also unwind it by having the two counsel get together and seeing if an amicable resolution of such can come to terms without going through the actual, legal process.
That's why I accepted David's friendly amendment to start the investigation rather than to start the unwinding.
Because there's some options there.
And,
That's the way you
and,
proceed.
and I note here that we are not being precipitous. We are still using Buckley Bryan for this issue.
And so to be clear, then does the process of the taking continue while we're investigating this, which means we are then still spending money on the discovery process and potential litigation in court?
I can check with counsel, but I believe the two processes are mutually exclusive. I don't think you could use the both simultaneously.
Okay.
It would be foolish to do both simultaneously.
Doesn't make sense.
So what's on the table then is start investigating the process of unwinding.
Start investigating the process of unwinding is the motion. Is there any more discussion on this?
So right now we're voting to start the unwinding or start the investigation.
Start the investigation,
Cody.
not the unwinding.
And what the motion proposed previously was to do both.
Motion proposed previously was to start the process of investigating and unwinding.
For the
I would
latter,
prefer to do both.
okay.
So you prefer the first?
The original.
The original, you do not prefer the second. So the amendment has to be voted on.
The amended version, John, which you indicated you accepted the friendly amendment to it, David, to correct me, would be, the way it is written, Buckley Bryan, legal counsel on this matter and township staff, to start the investigation of the process of unwinding, to start the investigation or start to investigate the process of unwinding. Yeah.
This allows us more options going forward. Now, that's not to, this is, on our part, this is to not ambush David and Michael the way they claim they were ambushed on the replacing the solicitor. This allows time for the board to consider and discuss the matter too. However, I don't want to seem like I'm being clever. You know where this is going.
Well, I mean, first of all, John, I appreciate your consideration on that we investigate this and not start the process. I will continue to express my position on this, that the township has invested a lot of money in this particular section that is where we're in conflict and in legal process with. And my position all along has been that for the future of the township and a future thinking board and residents, that with what has been invested in that section, to just let that go, whether it's $600,000 plus or minus, to just simply let that go into the vapors would be a disservice when we're going to, rather than to perhaps not build a trail at this point in time in that section, but to secure the easements for the future and to finish this process and let it go through the legal process. If the township prevails, that the easements would be secured, but not necessarily effective until some potential time in the future, but at least they exist. And that has been my interest all along as we started to talk about an alternative trail and other options. I could go on with it, but that continues to be of interest to me. So that's where I stand on it, John, but I appreciate your consideration to start to investigate how this might look. And it's possible that in the discussion, leaving some, options in this case and talking with the property owners, that we may come to some amicable arrangement that might satisfy all of us. I don't know. I don't have the crystal ball on that, nor have I thought about some of the scenarios that could play out at this point in time. But thank you, John.
I need a little bit of clarity here. So we had made the motion.
The motion stands.
The motion stands.
I will second that motion.
But the motion was made. David made an amendment.
Right.
We did not vote on the amendment. John said he could accept the amendment.
Oh.
Is that a second then, John?
It is.
Go ahead, make a comment.
I'm against what Supervisor Truitt suggested on eliminating the unwinding of the process. I knocked on almost 1,000 doors and spoke to hundreds of residents when I ran for my campaign for supervisor. The number one concern residents spoke to me about was the eminent domain of the Hicks Trail and Hicks Farm. They were worried that it could be their property next. And I told every resident that would be one of my first votes I'd be happy to cast to start the unwinding of the process. And so that is why I stand against this. I do not believe that Supervisor Truitt or Lynch would be ambushed or caught off guard, because they were well aware of John Michelle's stances on the trail before they voted for it, and what my stance was too politically before it got accepted, or before I was voted into office. So, thank you.
Thank you for those
comments. I'd like to comment further then.
I've got a comment that is very clear from public comment in the Futures Committee survey that those people supported the completion of the trail as planned. So you're hearing from your constituents. The Futures Committee was hearing from those who completed a credible, statistically credible survey that the trail should be completed as planned.
And I would, thank you, David. I also would comment that as a board, we prior to Cody's entrance onto the board, we've had a discussion about the particular process that is underway right now. And it was my understanding, and maybe you'll correct me, but it was my understanding that we had at least had some consensus that we would allow the legal process to play through. And again, I'm not interested to press on with developing the trail in that section if the current property owners are not interested in it, but to have the easements in place for the future. And here's why I say that, Cody. The property owners, the Hicks family, have divested themselves of portions of the Hicks family farm for years, decades. to a YMCA, to a QVC, to a bank, to a developer. They're interested in pursuing their equestrian operation, which is great. And I think that can continue. That's wonderful. But there is no conservation easement on this property to preserve the legacy. So if the equestrian operation is not doing well financially, and other circumstances occur, which apparently occurred in the past, otherwise they probably wouldn't have sold portions of the farm for income, that the property is exposed to selling it to anyone for future development without a conservation easement on it. Number one, I would be interested in discussing with the Hicks family about a conservation easement that the township would be involved with. That said, without a conservation easement, it's open and exposed to development. Eminent domain is a terribly powerful tool to suggest, or residents have a concern that where their property is going to be condemned next. I think it's a little bit of an overreach. This is a very specific example. We had this trail going on for the plan. All easements were granted by the property owners affected over time for either the consideration or for no consideration at all for the appraisals. We went out of our way to add further improvements to the property to address concerns of the family with fencing and electric fences, landscaping, and more, in addition to the appraised valuation of the 12,000 square feet and the 8,000 square feet in the front of the property, to apparently no avail. And my sense is, and I'll say it publicly, is I think that there were some long-standing grievances that the family had with those who have now left the township, and it's a residual that's occurred. I would also say that this section, where we now have a trail that is unfinished, represents a potential safety hazard for those who would either use the trail as it's existing now and then make their way to a further destination along Paoli Pike. In fact, we do have an ordinance in the township that the township can require a property owner to install a sidewalk were there to be safety issues associated with pedestrian safety, et cetera. So there are a number of issues here that I don't want to press the trail at this point in time to the Hicks family if they're not willing to do it. But with as far as we've come with this section and the investment that the township and the taxpayers have put into it to preserve the future opportunity there for a trail, should that property be sold, by having the easements in place would be, to me, a smart way to look at our future and not waste the dollars.
Let me put it to you very clearly. Michelle and I are against the eminent domain and condemnation and have been all along. Cody is new, but he is certainly against it too. You have a choice. You and David have a choice. We can make this motion to start investigating the process of unwinding, or we can make this motion to start the process of unwinding. You have a choice. Which do you love?
You're trying to put me into handcuffs, John, and I'm not going to accept that. You made the motion. You made. Excuse me, folks. All right, stop that. You made the motion to amend a friendly amendment, and I'm very accepting of that. I'm very accepting to investigate the process, and with an opportunity to talk further with the Hicks. I think that's a great opportunity to continue line of communication.
Let's not bring all the other issues up.
Well, I do that only because Cody had made comments from his standpoint, so I brought it up.
Let's focus on the motion.
Very good.
Cody, what do you want to say?
I just had one thing for Mr. Shuey. He claimed that it was, quote, my constituents. I wanted to remind him that all East Goshen residents are our constituents, and it's regardless of political affiliation. And it was people of all parties who were against the eminent domain of their trail. So I just wanted to clarify that for the record. And that's all.
Okay, I'm gonna have a couple comments here because public safety has been brought up and the sidewalk issue has been brought up. And the only reason that there could potentially be a safety issue is because Segment A was constructed before Segment B was even, the right-of-way was even acquired. And it was not fully acquired by the township at that point. And So there was no hazard before segment A was constructed. So John and I at the time felt that constructing segment A was a stupid idea. And we both voted against it because of that. You don't do a linear project out of order. You do a linear project from A to G. You don't do it willy-nilly as you see fit. If we find that there's an actual increase in pedestrian traffic on Haley Pike, and so far we haven't, we could revisit this concern and evaluate the options, which would include potentially digging up segment A. I mean, if segment A has really created that much of a problem, then we should either cover it over or dig it up. That's the way I see it. And it would cost a lot less to just simply dig it up than building segment B. As far as how much money it costs up to this point is water under the bridge. We're not going to keep throwing good money after bad. And moving forward today, the cost of unwinding the declaration of taking of land and completing the trail in an alternate method, an alternate route, would be lower than just the township's portion to cover segment A as it's been designed. This was something that John and I found people are against the eminent domain, and on social media, there were surveys done on social media that were pretty accurate, and they crossed party lines, they crossed all through the township, and 6-1, people were saying time and again they were against eminent domain. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm against eminent domain, and I want to start the unraveling of this process.
That's fine, and I,
And social media as a indicator of how we're making our decisions is that, rude that day.
It was a better statistically sound sample than what they use to evaluate many state house races these days. So I just.
I would like to
The
say,
public as well.
we're going to continue to talk, John. You're not going to shut things down. I would simply say I'm against eminent domain too. As a matter of fact, I took that survey. Somebody had sent that link to me. I don't participate in so, but I took that survey, and I think Russ Frank may have been the one that put it out there. And I said, Russ, I don't accept eminent domain either. We worked with the property owner. I will continue to say that the trail and the relationship to the equestrian operation there was a red herring. They had prior grievances, and that with the improvements that we were willing to put in as a township to mitigate and ameliorate any of the concerns with proper buffering, et cetera, the improvement could have benefited the township going forward, and the equestrian operation could have continued to flourish with very little impact, if any, perhaps a little during the construction, but that's it. So I continue to say that that's a red herring. I'm not in favor of eminent domain either, and we made every opportunity, but this was an improvement that was well along for years, and I wasn't at the beginning of it, but I certainly support it as a future improvement for our township and our residents as we go forward, and with potential connection to the other municipalities that are on either side of us.
Are there any other board comments or questions before we open it up to the public? Are there any public comments or questions regarding this matter? Please stand up. And you are our first resident of the year to speak. Please kindly, sir, name and address.
Bill Dyer, 1560 Tanglewood Drive. So I attended.
Can't hear.
Turn it up,
Sorry.
Bill Dyer, 1560 Tanglewood Drive. So I attended the public hearing back in June. And this room was filled to capacity. I'm gonna estimate there might have been 150, someone might have an actual count. All the chairs were filled, people were lining the complete perimeter. When it came time to public comments, almost everyone, I think, I didn't count, but it was substantial. It was probably more than 70 people stood up and provided the board public comment, and it was overwhelming. I think there was one person who initially it sounded like she was against the use of eminent domain to seize the Hicks property for the trail. Then she kind of changed at the end, but every single other resident comment was adamantly against using eminent domain for seizing the Hicks farm property. So I agree with some of the comments made here. The board has a responsibility to represent all the residents, and it's clear that there's an overwhelming disapproval for using eminent domain for seizing the Hicks property for the trail. So,
I would argue that it's far from clear. That's like saying 6,000 people showed up in Washington DC on January 6th.
So,
Overwhelming, there's overwhelming evidence that our president should have.
so David, you were hearing it. You heard the residents.
The tendency, we all know it exists, the people that are against things show up. People who are for things tend not to. And I don't view that public comment as evidence of a majority at all.
Well, that's an interesting comment, so I think that's revealing, David. So,
Anything else, Bill?
there you go. No, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you for coming up, Bill. Okay,
Good evening. My name is Wayne Wilson. I live at Summit House Condominiums. And Mr. Shuey, your last comment, I must tell you that, yeah, there might be a few hundred people that come in to say, no, we don't want this. But how many constituents actually voted for now a majority that do not want the Hicks family farm? And now it's the people talking and getting results. Our Board of Supervisors, they have heard us. You are one of those. We do not want the Hicks family farm to be taken away. End of story. Thank you.
thank you.
I would simply say the Hicks family farm is not being taken away by the township. The Hicks family has done more to take away their farm than any municipality. They've sold, I don't know, several hundred acres.
It's not for us to decide why
Well, it
they
is not,
sell
it's
their land.
not, it's not.
It's not
But
for us
again,
to determine that.
the whole business of we wouldn't have been in the eminent domain situation if they hadn't used used the equestrian operations, the red herring, to say they didn't want it. And that's one of the premises that I will continue to stand by. They have the right to do that. But I think as a municipality, as a local government, when you're trying to do improvements, especially for the future of the municipality, unfortunately, that exercise of eminent domain occurred. I'm not in favor of eminent domain either. Matter of fact, the father of the two Hicks, so William and Philip, Ira, who was a supervisor here, in fact, voted and used eminent domain during his tenure back when. Happened to be for a sewer line, but nonetheless, eminent domain was used. So I'm simply saying that the use of it, not in favor of it at all per se, but for the future of the township and with the limited amount of area to be used, I thought that was a reasonable use of that particular power.
So, Mr. Lynch, your vote was to use eminent domain,
Yes,
but you are against it.
yes.
Yes.
When is your term up, Mr. Lynch?
Well,
I'm asking a question, it's a legitimate
At the
question.
end of 23.
Okay, and they run against you.
Oh, you won't have to worry, because I was a one-term guy from the very beginning. I said it, let other people who are brighter and smarter than me take over and do it. I agreed to serve one-term period. I'm not a politician. I'm not interested in that. I'm here to try and serve and do the best I can, and that was a decision I made as rationally as I could. And that again, it does sound like a major contradiction. I do not like the use of eminent domain, but we did everything we could to complete a public improvement. We're not taking the farm. There were a total of 12,000 square feet linear and 8,000 square feet for the two respective properties, period.
And it's still none of your business to tell people what to do with their property. I sold my Honda the other day. You had nothing to do about that. Are you gonna tell me to sell my Jeep next? No, so leave the
I
Hicks
didn't
family
invent
farm alone.
eminent domain, sir. I didn't
Neither did
invent
I,
it.
and you know what, it doesn't have to be used.
Well,
There could have
then
been,
it should be
the funds,
extinguished in the books. It should be
That's-
extinguished in the books because
but
it's
there are,
legitimate use
there
of-
are legitimate uses for it.
and-
when there
and
is
that's
a need
why-
for the
that's
public
why
sewer,
we
like
differ.
you said.
That's where we
But
differ.
for
I
a
think
trail
it's
to
legitimate use.
nowhere and
It's a
out
trail
of
for the
order,
future. It's a trail for the future.
it's a trail to nowhere.
Well, that, we disagree, don't we?
He had his chance.
I don't think so.
There you go.
And he-
And I'd love to see you run for supervisor. I think it'd be great to step up for anybody here for a 6-year term and commit yourself to it. It's a lot of work. Good for you.
All right, good.
Russ is coming up.
Russ Frank, 451 Gateswood Drive. First, Mike, I'd like to say thank you very much for that recommendation that I put out that poll. I do not.
Oh, we had exchanged an
That was a
email,
different,
and
that was a
I
different
made
issue,
that
so I
point.
take that as a compliment.
Well, I'm sorry, that's right. I didn't even
Uh,
mean that.
And to both you and David, you know, the survey that the township did put out got less than 700 responses out of an 18,000 person resident. So that, how is that considered to be more valid than over 1,000 people responding to the poll on Nextdoor?
Well, as I recall, Russ, the survey that was
The survey that was done on the poll was a straight question. That's why I answered it. I don't favor the use of eminent domain either. It was a straight question. There was no backstory, no explanation, no historical context, no future context to it. So, it's similar to some of the other controversial issues that we have in our society. Do you favor abortion, do you not? Do you favor capital punishment or not?
What
And you
I'm
keep it
saying is,
straight.
why do you value yours so much higher than everybody else's?
Well, I can only say that the survey that was done by the township, of course, it was done through the Futures Committee, it, relative to the percentages, as any of the polls that we see nationally for whatever the issue or the subject matter is, they're based on a percentage of the total population as a sample, and there's that error factor of plus and minus certain percentages. And we base a lot of where we go, both nationally, within our state governments, et cetera, on polls like that, because we were not going to get a response from every resident. So we thought that survey was a relatively legitimate presentation of the subject that were included in it. Social media, I'll be one of the first to say I'm not a fan of it. I think it's done a lot to erode our communication and our
Under agenda?
excuse me? I'm sorry.
No.
But if I may, Bill, right? Bill made a comment about the meeting in June. Didn't we all forget about the meeting in December of 2019? Where they had to cancel the meeting for the T&D project, which was yeah, why? Because people are against that type of a movement.
Yeah.
And people are against the eminent domain of taking over farms. People are against the trail to nowhere. Yesterday, during the rainstorm, well, I guess yesterday during the cold weather, a father was pushing his daughter, well, it looks like a daughter, in a baby cart on the other side of Paoli Pike from the trail. He didn't use the trail. He used the wrong side of the road in the most dangerous time of the day with rain and slick weather. So what benefit is that trail having today? I hardly see anybody on it. So he spent $10 million for maybe 15 people using it. So where's the cost of return? You know, you three, you, David, and Mr. And Marty, you wanted this trail. You still proceed to push this trail no matter all the voices that are against it. You just are trying to push your guys' agenda.
Well, let me say this, Russ. The trail and the plan was well underway before I had much of anything to
I'm
do
not saying
with it.
anything about that. I'm
And
just
same-
continuing to pursue down this road that we gotta do it.
Well, the plan was approved and it made, again, I'm looking forward and a future position for a municipality of our stature to demonstrate the value of trails and multimodal access, pedestrian. The County Planning Commission has been a supporter of this type of trail installation. Other municipalities have done these things. The main issue here all along was the use of eminent domain when we did everything within our power to work with the property owner, take a very small area for this trail and accommodate beyond what the appraised valuation was of that land. And it was just again, the red herring of using the equestrian operation going to be negatively impacted forever was not an effective argument for me. I recognize that there were a couple hundred people here in a very agitated mode. And as David said, there were many times when someone supports something, they're very silent. They're passive. And it's when we oppose something that we, our blood gets churning and we come out. I've done it myself. I understand that. But I think that it doesn't represent doesn't represent the entire population of the township. I appreciated those folks that came out and expressed themselves. We've been working and discussing for the last couple of months now, trying to get a fresh survey out through the Futures Committee about some of these facilities and some of these amenities. We haven't been able to come to an agreement to put it out there and see how people feel about some of these things, whether it's the Milltown Dam, or whether it's the completion of the Paley Pike Trail. We haven't been able to do that. We haven't had the consensus to work on a survey that has been put together by the Futures Committee to try and get some better answers to these things. Look, we're going to agree to disagree. I'm going to respect at the end of the day my fellow supervisors, and I respect the residents' opinions. I have a different one. I have a different view. Some of my education, graduate education, and my early work and was in planning, city and regional planning. I've been in municipalities where trails and open space have been a key element, such as East Bradford Township. And so it's something I think is important. I've listened to the County Planning Commission and their landscapes plan and looking at this county going forward and recreational opportunities and where this county is going with both population and development. I think it is a forward leaning and improvement that will benefit this township and others in the future. So that's about the bottom line. But I will respect my supervisors, but I'll offer comment. Thanks, Russ.
Russ, I'm going to tell you that the way I feel about this is that regardless if it's a county plan, the township's comprehensive plan, the Paley Pike corridor plan, Paley Pike trail plan, if it's a bad plan, we're not obligated to follow through with it. Just because it's written down someplace doesn't mean we have to follow through with it.
I agree with you 100%. Nothing is cast in stone.
Nothing is cast in stone, that's why we have votes.
Madam Chair, may I?
Yes. Can I just ask, is there any other further comment from the public at this time? Hey, John?
Under the heading of no good deed goes unpunished, I realize that I made a mistake in trying to accommodate the two supervisors, and I would like to change my acceptance of the friendly amendment and go back to the original wording to start and investigate the process of unbonding.
Okay, I would need a second on that.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Cody. It's been seconded. The motion has had discussion. Are there any other comments from the board? Then I'm going to call the question. Those in favor of this
Aye.
motion, aye.
Aye.
And those opposed?
No.
Thank you. The motion passes 3-2. And we're almost done, folks, I promise.
Jill, let me make one more comment. The last comment you made about nothing's written in stone. You talked earlier about the importance of volunteerism. Those comprehensive plans are put together by a tremendous number of volunteers with volunteer input and community input. And to just say, yeah, we don't have to abide by those. I think you just step back volunteering in East Ocean by 10 years.
I'm sorry you feel that way, David. we'll agree to disagree on that. Moving on to the next matter is item 14E, consider recommendation for 2021 budget surplus. Do I have a motion on the table?
Well, I'll make a motion to, Madam Chair, to authorize and transfer the 2021 general fund budget surplus in the following amounts into the following funds. Should I read that, Michelle?
No, I think that we need to have Dave explain how he came to these numbers.
Certainly. So my recommendations for the budget surplus start with the amount of the surplus. So basically my projection now is that a minimum of 400,000 is going to be a budget surplus for 2021. I'm proposing that we take 10% of that surplus, or roughly 40,000.
Excuse me, I didn't get a second. I didn't have Mike read the numbers into the record because I knew you were going to do that. Do I have a second on the motion?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Cody. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So roughly $40,000 to the capital reserve fund. It looks like we are going to have some extra change order, which would come out of the capital reserve fund for total site developments, construction of the boardwalks, digging the holes deeper for the Hershey's Mill Dam project, and that would cover that overage. That's the latest that we've gotten. Mark Miller's working currently with Total Site and Gannett County. The infrastructure sustainability fund, the 55% would be roughly 220,000. This would help to offset the transfer. Now this would help to offset the Bowtree Pond 1 project and effectively keep our transfer in 2022 of 1.25 million from operating to the infrastructure sustainability intact. So we basically wouldn't be touching that. Further, the 25% to the operating reserve fund would help offset by 100,000 that transfer, which I just mentioned, going to the infrastructure sustainability. And the last amount would be 10%, or roughly 40,000 we would leave in the general fund itself.
And the reason these numbers are rough and you put percentages in is because you're expecting potentially a little bit more of a surplus than originally projected. Is that correct?
Correct. We're still finalizing. We should have month end done this week. And everything will go back at the date of December. And it could go up to 500,000. It's somewhere between 400 and 500,000. So I'm going with the minimum numbers as far as my estimates here.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for your efforts on that.
Yeah.
Sure.
So the motion on the table is to authorize the transfer of the budget surplus. Is there any board discussion or question?
I just wanted to add on to what you both said, and thank you for you and the staff and everything you guys have done to be fiscally responsible about that salary. You guys did awesome. 400,000 surplus is incredible. And as a taxpayer,
Amazing.
I'm very happy to hear that.
Let me just ask Michelle, if I might. Dave, can you give just a capsule as to how we arrived? I mean, we expense-wise, revenue-wise, it plays on both sides, but I know our revenues performed pretty well this year. Can you explain how we came to this 400,000 or 500,000 in surplus? How did it work out
Yes.
this way?
Yeah, the biggest drivers of that would be we had much more EIT, which drove our revenue higher. Part of that was Keystone Collections, who we affirmed this evening, did an extra campaign, so they went back and got delinquent people from 2019 especially, and they paid, plus everyone else paid, and we had COVID money that was hanging out there that people used that money to pay the taxes. We also had a $219,000 credit for WeGo, which is an overpayment from last year. That helped. And then we were under budget on a number of capital items, repairs to vehicles, maintenance repairs in the park. That's the majority of it.
Thanks.
Mark Miller should be commended. He did a great job this year.
Yeah. And real estate transfers.
That
was
Yeah,
strong.
we always budget that lower based on just our residential properties, and we actually had sales of commercial properties, including QVC, Swiss Farms transferred twice. That all helped.
Yeah, that's and the bank.
Bank, right?
Yeah. Thanks, Dave.
Are there any public questions or comments? I think everybody should give Mark Miller and our financial team a big thumbs up.
Yeah, absolutely.
So seeing that there are no questions from the public, if there's nothing else from the board, then I'm going to ask for that question to be called. So those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, 5-0. And moving on to any other matter. Are there any other matters at this time from the board?
No.
Or staff? Public comment period? And I open the floor if there are any public comments or questions. Seeing none, I'm going to move to liaison reports, which we have none. Correspondence and reports of interest, we have none, is my understanding.
Right to know
Yes,
report,
that's the
right.
next thing is the fourth quarter right to know report. We don't have to vote on that, we just
No.
have to simply accept that.
Acknowledge it.
It is available if you'd like to take a look at it. Nothing unusual, Derek,
No,
No, all standard requests.
all standard requests. I didn't see anything that was unusual. Code requests, yeah. And so that brings us to the last order of business. Would anyone like to leave?
I would love to make a motion.
All right.
Right, Mike?
I'll second that.
Second.
There we go.
Thank
I'll
you.
second that.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, 5-0.
David, thank you.
David, thank you for coming to the meeting this evening.
Safe journey.
Have fun.
All right, thank you.
Bye-bye now.
Mahalo.
Let me say hello, Bob.
I'm glad. Doing it right then, thank you.
That's my point. Just coming.
Thanks, Eric.
Exactly.